Hi, welcome to Lakeland Community College, the gallery at Lakeland. My name is Mary Urbis. I am the gallery director and exhibition curator. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to give you a video walkthrough of the current exhibition in the gallery, which is called Queer Pulse Ripple Effect. I did something a little different this year where I invited a guest curator, Kelly Pontoni, to talk about the work. She selected the artist, she selected the artworks. And the show is up currently now through September 9th. There's 20 artists that are showing 70 artworks created in a variety of media. I encourage you to come visit the exhibition and see the work in person because that is always preferable. The work will be available soon online for purchase if you would be interested in any purchasing or any information. And if you have any questions, you can always call me, Mary Urbis, and I'd be happy to answer questions for you. And I do want to let everybody know you can also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook, and look under the gallery at Lakeland. So thank you for coming along for the journey today. I hope you enjoy the exhibition and have a great day. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Kelly Pontoni, and I'm at Lakeland Community College. I am the curator of Queer Pulse, The Ripple Effect, and I would like to thank Lakeland and Mary Urbis for asking me to curate this show. Last year in 2021, I was the head curator for an exhibition called Converge, and I came to Mary and pretty much begged her to open up the space to be one of the venues. And with COVID and everything that had happened with scheduling and that, she really thought about it but could not squeeze Converge in. So like I said, last year was a huge LGBTQ plus show. I work for the Artists Archives of the Western Reserve, and we had 70 artists and 5 venues. And we kind of canvassed Northeast Ohio with LGBTQ artists. So in this winter, Mary asked me if I would curate a show for Lakeland, kind of a continuation of Converge since she wasn't able to be one of the venues last year. So I was very, very pleased to do so and very excited to connect with the artists. And it's such a beautiful gallery space here. I was very excited to start. So I wanted to visit some of the artists that were in Converge, but I also wanted to find some new artists. So as we go through, I can talk about some of the artists that were in Converge, but also some of the newer artists. And I have 20 artists in the show and about 70 pieces. And because Converge was so large, a lot of artists only had one piece in the show. And when I would do studio visits, I would see what they were working on and some of the series. So I was excited to go back to them and pick a few pieces from the artists. So the first artist here is Mark Howard. His pronouns are he, him. And this is called St. Andrew. It's acrylic on canvas. Mark was one of the artists that were in Converge. And what I was so excited about being at Lakeland was Mark has great work that's big. And I knew that the space would fit perfectly with some of his larger pieces. So we have this piece, and then there will be a couple other pieces as we go through the walkthrough. So this artist here is Jean Epstein, and this piece is called An Optimist Activist Alphabet. And it's an altered book art. And the reason why I picked this piece is because I really, really feel that words have so much power, especially now. They carry a lot of negative and positive, which Jean kind of touches on as she goes through the alphabet. if you see this in person, which I really encourage you to come and see some of these pieces in person, she has a positive word and then smaller within that word, a negative word. So this is a great collection of different words, and I think Jean did a great job. Jean was also an artist that was in Converge, and her artwork was at the Metro Health system. That was one of our venues. So that's Jean Epstein. And then here we have Josie Krampitz, and Josie's pronouns are they, he, she, and this is a digital photo that they produced. It's called Worship Me. Josie is a young artist, new to my radar. I went to Liz Moggins and I asked her if she could give me a name of some new and upcoming artists. And it was right around the time that Josie was going to be in a show at Worthington Yards. So I went to Worthington Yards and I was introduced to Josie. And they are, this year coming up is their last year at Kent. They are printmaking major. And I think they have really, really strong works, and you'll see a few more pieces from Josie. So here again we have Josie Krampitz, and these are two pieces. They are screen prints, and this first one is screen printed, and then they place the print on house siding. And the title of this piece is The Lifestyle. What really attracts me to these pieces is that you really have to walk up to them and read a story. Josie deals with a lot of detail in cartoonings, it has a high energy, and a lot of really self-reflection. Josie also has the same print here, which is Lifestyle 2, and it's the same print, but she had put some coloring in, hand coloring, which I think, you have two different reads. One is on this house siding, which definitely has a lot to do with the narrative. And then you have this, beautifully screen printed piece that is hand colored. So this piece is by artist Erica Carter. And Erica is an out trans Black woman, and she told me a great story. I've been working with Erica through Converge and now through this exhibit, Queer Pulse. And when I first heard about the Black Trans Project, I just was really pulled in. Erica is a photographer, and she had produced this installation piece. And if you go on to erica.com, you can see her whole collection of these photos with trans people and non-binary people and their siblings, which I think is a great example when you look through these images that they're just like everyone else. They're just like people in our families. They're could be our neighbors. And I think it's a great celebration for the trans community. Erica shared a story with me when she dropped this off, and she said that, you see these images of people and you don't know much about them. And she talked to us about, me and Mary, about November 20th, which is Transgender Day of Visibility. And you would think as a trans person, this would be a day that you could really celebrate, but it's really one of the hardest days for her because there's always a remembrance of the trans people that were killed throughout the year. And this year she has added a photo of the framed work all in one piece, which I think is a great addition. This piece was also in Converge. This is the only piece that is exactly the same way as it was in Converge. It was displayed at Lake Erie College. I just feel like it's such an important issue, especially now with everything that's going on, that I had no hesitation to bring it back for another exhibit. So this artist is Jessica Pinsky. Her pronouns are she, her, and the title of this piece is B and M, August 8th, 2019 to August 9th, 2019. Jessica is a weaver. She is also the executive director at Praxis in Waterloo. And the way that I've connected with Jessica was she was my professor at the Cleveland Institute of Art. And I was a non-traditional student, which means I went to school as an older adult. And I graduated in 2019, and Jessica was a big part of that. She was really, really supportive. She talked to me a lot about her own journey, and she had a couple pieces in Converge, and they were also on the birth of her twins. So she had twins in August 2nd. Actually, today is their birthday, 3 years ago. And these weavings, 7 weavings, show the first 7 days of their life. And what I love is how she disrupts the surface of the weave with these threads that come out of the compositions. And I think it's a great depiction of their first 7 days in life. The next artist is Josie Krampitz, once again. And like I said, Josie is going into their senior year at Kent State. And when I was looking through her work, myself, I am a printmaker, so I'm always really attracted to prints. But she was doing this little different technique. And we have 2 pieces. And what they are is copper plate intaglios that she etches, then mixes wet plaster, inks up the plate as if you were going to print on a piece of paper. But instead of paper, she pushes the plate into plaster. And once the plaster dries, the plate comes off. And you have to come to the show. This first one that you're looking at is called Set in Stone. And the detail of the line is really amazing. It's really hard to see all the depth that she's getting on these. It's a must-see. Come in and check them out. And as you can see, this piece sold at the opening on Sunday. The next piece of Josie's is Change So Much. And this is a screen print. And she had multiple versions of this piece. She had, and sizes. And what she expressed to me is, as a transitioning young person, she wanted to make this a little larger than the pieces she had originally produced. And when she came in to drop off the pieces, she had added the mirror, which I thought was great concept because of the title of the piece, the imagery. If you look closely around the mirror, you can see all these different figures in different movements and different shapes. So I think it's really tells us a lot about her and the things that she's going through personally. And then we have another intaglio in plaster called Wind and Streams, #1. And if you are here in person, again, you can see the very detailed line work in this piece. And also you can see how the plate presses into the plaster, which I think is really such an added texture and dimension to an intaglio process. These pieces are by an artist named Jackson Kennedy. Their pronouns are they, them, and unfortunately Jackson is no longer with us. A very, very dear friend that I met while at the Cleveland Institute of Art was a printmaker, and she had graduated years before I did and was working at CIA. And she would always talk about her son, her child, Jackson, and they went to SCAD in Georgia, and just really super talented. And they had some addiction issues and lost the battle. And these pieces, I think, really portray a lot. The first, they're all untitled, and the first one with red and black is a litho, and then the middle one here is a woodcut on paper, and then the black is another litho. And Jackson was in Converge also. His piece displayed at the LGBT Center in Cleveland. And that piece was purchased and is now on permanent display at the center, which I think it's just really important to, just kind of like Erica Carter, look at these fragile experiences in life, especially with the younger LGBTQ people. This is artist Sam Butler, pronouns they, them. Sam also graduated from the Cleveland Institute of Art with me in 2019 as a photography major. And Sam was one of the curators with me for Converge. And when we had the exhibition Converge, we were so busy with all the venues and the artists that some of our works were either older works that we had in the show. These two pieces, they're both untitled, 1 and 2, and in Sam's statement, they talk about Jason, that's the gentleman in these photos, and Sam talked about the self-assurance that these express, and both showing masculine and feminine, and kind of celebrating that space. They also printed these on photometallic paper. So if you're here at Lakeland checking out the show, make sure you look at a few different angles of these pieces, because you just get this wonderful glimmer, metallic glimmer on some of the edges of like his jacket or the hands. And these pieces I saw on Sam's social media on Instagram, and I immediately fell in love with them. This is Dan Rothenfeld, pronouns he, him, and the title of this piece is called Belonging. It's acrylic on canvas. This piece Danny had done about 10 years ago, he said, and this is a self-portrait. Dan was also in Converge, and a lot of his pieces represent himself. You know, this piece here, he's in the center, he's wearing this cloak or shroud, and around him, if you look closely, you can see faces in the auras. The colors are soft, and all these different faces, some facing in, some facing out. When I selected this piece, Dan was talking to me that he wanted to produce a self-portrait in a painting, and he was really struggling. And he had started this and just really did not like it. And just gessoed over it and started over. So as he had reminded me at the opening, this is really two paintings. There's one underneath that we can't see, and then this one. And when I talked to him, he said this is just a great representation of all the people in his life. When we talked about Converge, when he was in Converge, he talked a lot about the AIDS epidemic, which has a special place in my heart. A lot of my own work has to do with LGBTQ and the AIDS crisis. And Danny lived through all of that. And I think this piece for myself just reminds me that these men and women just really had to count on the support of their friends and family. So I think he portrays that perfectly in this piece. This piece is also by Dan. He is a glass artist. He went to RISD and he studied with Chihuly. And the piece that he had in Converge was a glass piece that was a full-figured man, a little taller than this piece, and it was all these plates of glass that he had chipped away to create this figure. Well, this piece is called Return, and when I talked to Dan at his studio, he just talks a lot about being centered and feeling grounded. So I think with the previous piece, Belonging, and then this piece also, Return, you just get this sense of the centeredness and grounding. This artist is Lilith Horschke, pronouns they, them. This first piece is called Stitch Me Down. It's a mixed media on canvas, and it's really hard to see, but if you come close to the piece, the outline of the shapes, the guitar, and the figure are threads. They sewed through the canvas. And this is a self-portrait. And when I talked to this artist, they're a young artist that is a junior at Ohio University. They talked a lot about identity and finding identity and finding where they fit in. And I think this self-portrait shows this reflection. And with the threads, they're really inviting you into the composition to look closely and see the detail. The piece on the right is a self-portrait also. It's called Self-Portrait with Bass. And this shows a little other side of Lilith. They play the guitar, they are an artist in school, they have a double major in biology and arts. So I think this interpretation of her playing them playing the guitar is perfect, showing us just the different avenues that they have in their life. Michael W. High is a ceramic artist. The first piece we have is Tale of the White Raven, and I'm a huge fan of Michael. I think his attention to detail with clay is just amazing. I think when you look at his pieces, you can just put yourself right into that situation. His pieces have a lot of natural objects in them. This one, a tree with a raven. And when I've talked to Michael about his work, he had shared with me that a lot of these pieces are self-portraits. So once he told me that, I feel like I really looked at the work differently. The piece in the center is called Strike a Pose. And I know he's done some paintings and collages, and every once in a while I'll see, one on Instagram or social media. And he was also in Converge. So when I talked to him about being in this show, I really wanted one of these 2D pieces. A lot of Michael's clay work have this bunny figure in them, which he brings into this piece. I think they have attitude, which you can definitely see in this mixed media piece. And like his sculptures, they have this texture and this tactile feel to them. This is one of the things that really attracts me to an artist, is that when they can show you a piece that you just really want to get close to and kind of look at, and you want to touch but you can't. I think he brings that in his 2D work and his 3D work. And then this piece here is called Pandemonium. And just the expression on their face, their eyes are usually half shut, but you just get this gesture of exactly what he's trying to portray. And I think the one thing that always attracts me to his pieces is that he has these rough edges and these sharp edges on these clay pieces. And I think even though I can't touch it, I know I can feel how those textures feel just by looking at the piece. This piece is Michael High and is called Unmasked. This is a wall piece, and it's sold, as you can see. Michael doesn't do too many wall pieces, but every once in a while we'll see one. And I think just the color and the expression on the face, and again, I'm gonna just talk about the textures, is really appealing to me. He also has a bird on this piece, like he did the raven. What I think is so wonderful is the way Mary laid out this show is, you have a crow on Michael's piece, and then right below it, this paper piece by Nancy Halbrooks called Homage to Crows, 100 theme book inspired by Crow's Screen, Seattle Asian Art Museum. And Nancy has a lot of work that has crows in it. And she's done some beautiful drawings and paintings. She had a piece in Converge that was a large wall piece that she had painted on Tyvek, and it had this theme of the crows. And she talks about her love for the crows and their shape and their movement, and how when you see one crow, you usually see a couple other ones. And I think her work plays on realism and abstraction. This piece, which is a board book and paper, cutout paper, you really can look at seeing the crows, but also just seeing these abstract shapes. And the silhouette in the composition, I think, is just wonderful on this piece. These next 4 pieces are from Nancy Halbrooks also. She uses she, her pronouns. This first one is called Blue Tiger Box. And it's a box with a lid that has a very twisted form. And these constructions of these boxes are they give a sense of delicateness and fragility. And then as we go around, you will see these aren't so much boxes. I look at them more as vessels. She calls them boxes. The first one is called the Crow Box. Again, Nancy is bringing the crows back into the work. On the outside, she has different crows flying, standing, walking, but then on the inside, she has this great intimate crows on these trees and very delicate lines, which I think is perfect for the construction of these boxes or vessels. Then there's the crazy quilt box. So in March of this year, 2022, Nancy had an artist residency at the Morgan Conservatory. And the whole time she was there, she did these marbled papers. And when I did a studio visit with her, she said that during the pandemic, she just wanted to make these boxes and come up with these forms. And then with the residency, she just had tons of material with these marbled papers. And then the last box is Celestial Blue, which I think is just beautiful with the dark tones and the black on the outside, and then this marbled paper of all different shades of blue on the inside. This is another new artist to me, Joe Dill, pronouns he, him. I saw Joe at a show called Reveal, which was a fundraiser for LGBTQ event, and his pieces were displayed there, and I just really was interested in the composition of these reeds. So he was not in Converge, but I knew for sure that I wanted to check out his work and visit his studio. These two pieces are called Jacob Wrestling with the Angel, Part 1 and Part 2. And these are a little bit different because of the background painted black with the texture, but he gives the outdoor landscape and like almost gives me a sense of this aerial view. And if you look at the reeds, they're perfectly aligned. This is exactly like his personality. He's very just polished and meticulous, and I thought his work just really expresses that. What I also read about Joe is that he buys these reeds from bamboo curtains. We see those bamboo curtains that have the reeds and they're all attached, and he takes them apart and he cuts them, and he talks a lot about light in his work and how the narrative of these has a lot to do with the way the light hits the pieces, the paint, and the reeds. This piece called Crown in Pink, it has bamboo metallic leaf on canvas. So this is constructed on a canvas, and he has the pink triangle, which is often you see in different LGBTQ things. The pink triangle represents when the Nazis had any type of person that said they were gay men, they would tattoo them with this pink triangle. So I love the way he incorporates that in this piece. And I want to read this little quote by Joe. He says, "I love the light. I love to create pieces that are as dependent on light as any other living thing on the planet. I love the way the reed I work with interacts with the light to create depth and dimension on the flat surface. A once living material, the reed comes alive again on the canvas, reflecting light, absorbing light, and dancing in the light." The two next pieces are from Mark Howard, and these two are a little larger than the pieces that you saw when we first started. This piece is called Yee's Place. It's acrylic on canvas, and I just am so attracted to his shapes. His paintings, for me, always give this narrative. We don't know the narrative. We might get a sense of what it could be from the title, But as you just sit with this piece, you can see the figures, you can pick out items that are in our homes. But then also you can look at this piece as abstraction and color and shapes. Mark Howard was also a graduate of the Cleveland Institute of Art, and he's been popping up all over the place. He was in Converge also, and he had pieces at the LGBTQ Center in Cleveland. And the pieces that he had in Converge, Progressive Insurance bought for their permanent collection. This piece is called Mama's Dreamin' About the Lottery Numbers by Mark Howard, acrylic on canvas. With this piece, when I was at Mark's studio, which is his home, he pulled out this piece and he said it was a little bit older piece. And this is an homage to his mother. As you can see, there's faces throughout the painting and these numbers all over. Some are in the circles, some are in the background. You kind of see them all over the place. And he told me the story about how much his mother just loved to play the lottery and just was always looking to win the lottery. And you see the two genie lamps at the bottom and just this really whimsical, very abstracted image that gives just a sense of these calming colors. And I feel like I knew a lot about his mom by just looking at this piece. This is Max Markwald. He uses he, him pronouns. This piece is called 26, and that would represent the age that he painted this. Max is an out trans man, and I could never explain to you how beautifully he talks about his transformation. On his website, he has a quote that says, "Avoiding the label queer artist for 27 years afforded me plenty of time to figure out who I was before coming out professionally as a trans man. But that's not why I ran from the label for so long. Maybe it's because queer still has that bitter taste of a word I was taught not to say. Maybe it's because queer feels like a declaration of arrival, a one-way ticket destination. Or maybe my hesitation came from being denied health care, denied health insurance, harassed in public, threatening my job. I take the label as queer artist not as a stopping point, but rather as a way of looking at a system that does not recognize my existence and saying, you don't get to tell me what that word means anymore." Max was also in Converge, and when he was transitioning, he had done these 7-foot tall paintings, one for every month as he was going through his transition. And as you can see with this piece, he's shied away from showing you his eyes. He has this hat pulled down. The tones give a sense of feeling. Max, his work reflects that in all of his paintings. This is another painting by Max Markwald. This is called Sir Diamond Jones, 6 weeks post FTM top surgery. So that means 6 weeks after female to male top surgery. This is a new painting for Max, and I was just so excited to have it in this show. 3 pieces that we had in Converge, Max had painted himself after his top surgery. And he had his surgery at Metro Health Hospital, and we were going to display them there, and they wouldn't display them there. They said they were too triggering. And what I had said were these were just beautiful pieces that celebrated the person that they had always been inside. That this was not a negative depiction. This was not a woman who was showing her chest after breast cancer. These post female to male top surgeries are celebrations for these young people. And I just feel that Max is so brave the way he portrayed himself and also this young man here. This piece is called 27. And going along with Max Markwald's different self-portraits through the process of him coming to terms with his own identity, he is sharing with us these oil paintings where you can see just the expression on his face, unlike the 26 where he was shying away from us seeing his eyes. You can see the scars from his top surgery. I just feel that this man is well beyond his age. He struggled all through college as a female and made a conscious decision to be a queer artist when he decided that he was transitioning. And he talks about this a little bit, that he had to sit and think about, did he want to be known as an oil painter or did he want to be known as a queer painter? And he has embraced the fact that he is a queer painter. This is Melissa Bloom, pronouns she, her, and these are oil and collage on wood. This one here is called I Am Gay. And with all of the pieces that I selected of Melissa's, she touches into kind of the history of the LGBTQ movement. And she looked at different photographs and older newsletters. She was inspired by the photographer Diana Davis, and she also looked at the latter newsletters. And what I think is so great about these is they almost give a little bit of propaganda feel, which you usually don't see in an oil painting. The next piece, which the title is Marcia P., and she's holding a sign that says Power to the People. And I think the depiction of this woman, leaning against this, building and talking about power to the people definitely could fit into LGBTQ, it could fit into racism. I think these are really just spectacular oil paintings. And this one also is oil on wood. This one is called Homosexual Acts, and it has 2 men. And in the background, it says, homosexual acts do nothing to destroy the social structure. And this was very dear to my heart. It made me think of the AIDS crisis and how many men had died during that time, and just the fear that was running through the community. And you can, it's a timely piece. Their clothing in June of 1969 was the Stonewall riots. So we're past 50 years since those. So I think this really, some of these talk about the history of the LGBTQ movement. These are screen prints by artist John Sale, pronouns he, him, and they are called Love Letters 1, 2, and 3. The colors are different, but it has the same imagery. And these are my absolute favorite. I saw these when I was selecting art for Converge, and I was worried about a space issue because we had so many artists. John's statement says that he believes that our life experiences are bits and pieces of ephemeral that become our collective memory. That is what is perfectly displayed in these wonderful screen prints. Hints of this narrative that is expressed in the color and the content. You can kind of see that there's an eye and an ear, so it gives you this sense of some type of person or portrait. And then if you come up close to the images, you can see the writing. And again, like I talked about with Gene Epstein, you know, when there's words in a piece, I think it really has viewers come up close and really look at the pieces. And these are especially with the title, Love Letters. So I think we all kind of get interested in what these words could say or what type of meaning they have. And you can see also one of these has sold. I wanted to have 3 of them. John has these in many different colors, but I felt like if I had 3 of these that hung together, it would really hold a person long enough to make some investigations on the content. Here we have 2 more pieces by Melissa Bloom, she, her. The first one is called Lavender Menace, and you can see that they're wearing shirts. Again, I'm going to talk about, you know, historical references for the LGBTQ movement. I know she got a lot of inspiration from photographs. These are both oil on wood. The next piece is called Lesbians Aren't Monsters. And the piece says, lesbians aren't the monster they depict us to be. And I think this is just a really fun image of a woman that's standing there. Melissa's was in Converge also, and her pieces are still displayed at the LGBTQ Center in Cleveland. The center purchased her pieces from Converge, and what she wanted to do is paint all 70 artists. So she painted on small 5-inch by 5-inch canvases every single artist that was in Converge, and those are displayed at the LGBTQ Center. This piece is from Nancy Halbrooks again, pronouns she, her, and this is called Hope is the ... And it's an Emily Dickinson box. And when I had my studio visit with her, she didn't talk about this piece, and it just kept catching my eye. And I picked it up and I looked at it, and she told me that this is Emily Dickinson is her favorite poet, and the 3 sides of this box are images from the Emily Dickinson Museum in Amherst, and then the poem in the box, which is handwritten in the box, was from the Huffington Library at Harvard. And she also has printed in Emily Dickinson's handwriting these poems of hers. And I just felt like, especially with the title of Hope, really resonated with me with right now, and everything that's going on. And I think it's just a great homage to such a wonderful poet. This is a piece by Ray Caspio, pronouns they, them. The title is On Love Can Be. It was inspired after Ray saw a clip of Lainey Kazan on YouTube singing Love on the Ed Sullivan Show from July 6, 1969. And he touches on the psychedelic swirls of colors that filled the atmosphere and this performance that had a lot of movement and really showed expression. Ray is a painter, a performer. He produces improv. He produces plays. He's a teacher. And I think with all of his work, he just has so much expression of himself. And he has been very, very affected by the pandemic and not being with people, and has produced a lot of different works. And this piece, I just felt like was just such a beautiful portrait of someone he admired and really stands a lot for the type of person that Ray is. Here's another piece by one of the curators from Converge. This is artist Mark Yazinchek, they, them pronouns, and the title is Who Am I Going to Call? And there's so much in a mosaic piece. I do some mosaic myself, and I think what Mark does so well is if you look at this piece from far away, it's a symmetrical image. But then as you come up close, you can see each small piece and the uniqueness that it holds. Like I said, Mark was one of the curators with Converge, and I can't tell you enough about how much he does for artists and queer artists. And I'm ecstatic that this piece also sold. And he is just, I knew that I had to have him as part of this show. This is artist Karen Beckwith, pronouns she, her. And these pieces, the title is Situation Observation 1 through 5. The imagery is behind a window, which I think gives so much context to the imagery. And that's one thing that really attracts me to Karen's pieces. She talks a lot about this just the evidence of seeing things. And I think she does such a great job. It really, for me, it questions where these images are from, where she got the images, were they her images. And she does a lot of photographing at Corey, PA, where she was raised, and also she's been to Taiwan a couple times. And I think you can feel in some of these pieces the Asian references. This is also by Karen Beckwith. The title of this is Walk This Way. And this may look familiar because this is on the postcard for the Queer Pulse Ripple Effect. And when I saw this image, I knew right away that I wanted it to be on the postcard because I feel like it has a lot to do with the title, this arrow pointing to who knows where, and just the sense of the LGBTQ community being together as we walk through this. Karen's career has really spiked the last few years. She is also in the Can Triennial in 2 different places. And I met Karen because she was one of the technical assistants in printmaking. And she has since left CIA. She was also an alum of CIA, and she is now working as a full-time artist. This is artist Jan Zorman, pronouns she, her. This piece is called Falling, and it's a wood relief on paper. And with all of Jan's work, you'll see as we go through the show, is she has this movement and these simple lines, which with this piece, it looks like these objects are just falling into place. These are also 3 pieces by Jan Zorman. And the first one is Dream Weaver. And when I went to Jan's studio and was looking through all of her works, I really struggled at what to select. She has very strong, powerful work. And a lot of her work, as you'll see, has to do with the line, that printmaking edge where the ink doesn't touch, that allows the paper to be a part of the piece. This piece in the middle, called Contemplation, is a wood relief on paper. And if you're here at the gallery, you can look very close at this work and see how the wood grain is part of the print. And then this last piece is called Sampler. Jan was also in Converge, and Jan does these installation pieces with string and filament. And I think her print work really represents her installation work, just with these crisp lines, and again, these deep, dark, rich colors really exaggerate the markers. The next few pieces are by the artist Randy Maxon. Pronouns he, him. This first one is Sex Sells, and the S is a $. These are mixed media on canvas, and what really attracts me to all these works of Randy, is that the texture that he has with the paint and the surface. This next piece, he brings in an object again, the car, and the title for this one is Even Still, the Grass is Always Greener. And I talked to a few people at the opening, and they really came up close and intimate with these pieces. And they were talking to Randy about some of the newspaper clippings that he picked for some of these. And all of those pieces were, subjected to the imagery and very intentional. This is another piece by Randy of these 2 silhouette bikers in the middle of the composition. And the title of this piece is Gender Identity Thief. And I think just having those 2 bicycle silhouettes in the center, and then this abstraction of the lines and the angles, plays a lot in the title and the composition of this work. This piece is called Materialized. It's Randy Maxon, and it is a mixed media on canvas. And again, he visits these silhouettes of bikers. I think what I enjoy most about Randy's collages is that it really challenges me to look closely to see what materials are painted and what materials are actually added. This piece here is called Schadenfreude. I'm probably saying that wrong. And it's a mixed media on canvas. And it has this wonderful texture in the background as well as the vehicle. The title of this piece is called Material Paradox. It is mixed media on canvas by Randy Maxim. Randy was also in Converge. He had one piece that was displayed at the LGBTQ Center, and again, he visits, this collage, this object in the middle. He talks a lot about transportation, and again, I'm going to talk about the texture in these pieces, which really encourages you to come to the show, because I'm sure that you can't see all of the texture and everything that all of these paintings have to offer. This is usually not something that we have as part of art exhibitions, but for the opening, we had invited some different groups, LGBTQ groups for outreach. We had SOGI, Geauga SOGI, which is Geauga Sexual Orientation Gender Identity. It's a support network in Geauga County. We have information if you want to come to Lakeland and pick up some information about them. And then we also had the Greater Cleveland LGBT Center that is in Gordon Square. They were here, and there's some pamphlets on different things that they have for support and going on at the center. And check this table out if you come and see the show. I think it's really important to have things like this available for younger LGBTQ folks. We also have a call for LGBTQ artists from the West 117th Foundation. They're going to be doing some murals with queer artists, so check it out. This is our last piece. This is Jean Epstein. It's called Flower, and it's paper folding in an altered book. And the depth of this is really amazing. This frame is probably about an inch thick, and if you look closely, you can see that these are magazine pages that are folded, really coming out of the book and being folded. And it's just a beautiful piece. And I think it's a great way to end this talk. And again, I want to thank Mary Urbis and Lakeland Community College. Right after I graduated from high school many years ago, I came to Lakeland for about 1.5 years. And so just coming back here has brought up a lot of memories, and it's been great to connect with the school again. So I really hope that you come out and see this show. I'm really proud of all the artists, and I think it's a great collection and just a small touch into the talent that Cleveland has in our LGBTQ artists.